God, I was doing a lot of different movies. I'd done American Gigolo before that, and Cat People, and Thief. So I had a few films under my belt, and Don Simpson was an ex-roommate of mine, and I lent him my sport jacket to go be interviewed for the job at Paramount, which he got, and became the head of production. And he said, "We got this script, we got to get it going. It's supposed to be released in April, and we need somebody to come in and work on this," and it was Flashdance.
In a world made of steel, made of stone.
The whole thing originated long before me and before Don. It was something that Dawn Steele bought from Peters and Goober, who had a company, I think it was called Casablanca, that were making films. And Linda Opes had developed it there. She was an executive there.
I was miserably unhappy at the beginning of my motion picture career, working for Casablanca, and I was trying to figure out what I was doing there. I didn't really know how to do my job. I was a refugee from the New York Times, and I got a call from a fellow named Tom Headley, who had worked during the heydays of Esquire magazine, and he had one idea that he wanted to talk to me about, which was about girls who danced in bars in Vancouver. He said what was different about these girls that he watched was that they didn't dance to strip. They danced to dance because they wanted to be dancers. And they had their own costumes, and they had their own dance routines, and their favorite musical numbers. And he called them flash dancers. And I was immediately blown away. I said, this is it. This is a movie idea. I saw a modern musical, and I saw a girls' empowerment piece. I saw a way you could do kind of a girls' Rocky. And that was the beginning of Flashdance. So Paramount decided it wanted to make Flashdance, and Dawn Steele became the executive of Flashdance. It became her first project. Simpson and Bruckheimer became partners. It became their first project. Eventually, I became associate producer on the project, and Flashdance went on its long route to getting made.
I'd made a movie called Foxes that nobody went to see, you know, with Jodie Foster and Sally Kellerman. And I guess the tough thing really is sort of getting your first movie off. I mean, that's the really tough thing. But having done that, nobody was really interested in me doing another one. So then Dawn Steele offered me this script of Flashdance, and I thought it was pretty simplistic, you know, and I didn't like the script, and it was very hard for me to turn anything down.
And I read the script, and I said, oh, it's interesting, but it needs work. It was, I think, the Tom Headley draft that I read. And he said, no, we're going to get a new writer, we're going to bring somebody else in, we're going to get it going. I have these instructions, we need something in the theaters, we got to get this thing ready. So we hired Joe Esterhaus. Joe had been a friend of Don's for a long time, was a writer at Rolling Stone, really had a beat on what kids were up to and what they were doing. And Joe turned in a screenplay that was much closer to a more realistic movie that we wanted to make.
Anyway, 6 months later, she approached me again and said, come on, you're going to do this. They want to make this film. And I could see that they obviously wanted to make it. So in the end, I did it.
Adrian's a real gifted artist, and he's a very strong visual artist. He has a unique visual point of view. And you wanted somebody to do a movie about dancers who had a very strong visual sense. And Don had heard of Adrian and knew his work, so it wasn't difficult to convince Don. Don was there already. It's just he had to convince his bosses, Michael Eisner, that this was the right way to go. And Michael had an enormous amount of faith in Don's ability and his creative instincts.
Don was the most extraordinarily enthusiastic person, and he was somebody who could consume you, this guy. I mean, and it was all for the movie. I mean, it was just passionate about the script and what we're going to do with it. I remember once getting on the phone with Don Simpson, and we started talking, I remember, at about 10 o'clock in the evening from my house. And we talked and we talked and we talked, and then I saw the light coming up. And I looked at my watch, and it was 7 o'clock in the morning, so I'd been on the phone with him for, what, 9 hours, solid, and it didn't feel like it. That's what's so extraordinary.
You had to deliver. And, you know, Don, again, would push the studio for more money, would push the talent to get better. He was constantly pushing and never accepting anything as good enough.
So if the movie works in any way, it was because of an enormous amount of enthusiasm.
There weren't that many really known actors of that age that were 18, 19, 20 years old in those days. And it's real interesting how she got the job. Our casting director at the time, who was working in New York, and when we came into New York, when we saw a lot of women there, and this one girl who she'd worked with called her up and said, "I'm in town, I'm just coming back from Europe, I'm about to start college in the fall." And she said, "You gotta come in right now." And the only reason she was in New York was because her luggage got lost, and she had to wait for her luggage to come back.
Well, when I first met Jennifer Beals, she just got off a plane and she lost all of her luggage, I remember that. So she was in a very emotional state. I was just bowled over with the way she looked, just her face. She had a kind of a glow. She was 17, and it's like you go, God, I've got her at the right time. And she came in and she did a bit of dancing. And honestly, she wasn't the world's best dancer, so I wasn't taking her for that, you know. But she had just a terrific quality, and I kind of knew immediately that she was right for this thing.
And Adrian looked at her and said, "That's the girl." I mean, he knew right away. She had no makeup on. He worked with her for at least an hour and a half, trying to get a performance out of her. And she wasn't somebody who had actually been studying acting, but Adrian was somebody who loves to give young people an opportunity and likes fresh talent, and felt he could get a good performance out of her.
Some nights I just can't wait to get out there, just so I can disappear.
She had a kind of a vulnerability as well as looking extraordinary. And I knew, you know, that she didn't necessarily have to do the dancing. I could get somebody else to help with that.
No, it's interesting because after we did the test, every one of us had a different girl who was our favorite girl. And what Michael Eisner did, we showed the test to Michael, and Michael took all the secretaries from the floor and brought them into the screening room and said, "Who do you like?" And they all picked Jennifer, the same girl that Adrian wanted.
You're Alex.
I know.
I'm Nick Hurley.
Really?
I was living in New York doing an off-Broadway play, and I got a call about a picture that Sam Peckinpah was doing called The Osterman Weekend. So I met with Sam Peckinpah, and he said, "I'd like you to be in my movie." And then my agent gave me a script with the unlikely title of Flashdance. Scrolled across the page. I thought, what a strange title this is. What could this be about? And my agent said, "Just read it, see what you think." So I read it. And I liked it. I thought it was a very sweet story. So I went in and met with Adrian Lyne, and my agent said to the Paramount people, "Well, we've got another offer, and you guys have to make your move by 6 o'clock. Otherwise, he's going to go do Peckinpah's movie." And I was fine with that. I mean, how can you lose? Turns out, the Peckinpah movie didn't do very well, and Flashdance became iconic.
Hello, dancer.
Hi.
Want a hand?
No, thanks.
I think what's nice about Michael Nury is that he has a kind of a stillness. You know, he doesn't do too much. And he was kind of her conscience, if you like, in the movie. You know, he was kind of like a mentor. And in terms of the love scenes, he was in no way sleazy, I think. And I've always thought it was more interesting. In any sort of scene of sexuality, I like the woman to be the aggressor. I think it's much more interesting to watch, to be honest. The cliche really is the man taking her in his arms and grabbing her and kissing her or whatever. But it's much more interesting, I think, coming from the other way, really. Especially in the terms of this movie, which was sort of about emancipation and about going for it and stuff like that.
Green, damn you, I can't believe it, he didn't call.
So at one stage, it was really a toss-up between Cynthia Rhodes and Jennifer Beals and another girl. And luckily, Cynthia agreed, in the end she didn't get the lead, but she agreed to work in the movie. I mean, and she was an extraordinary dancer. At the time, I think just about the best dancer of her type in the country.
Cynthia Rhodes got the part because she's a phenomenal dancer, and she was beautiful, and she could act. The rest of them all brought something fresh to the party.
I need a BLT on rye, Richie.
Sally Johnson, who played Jeannie in the movie, again, as I remember it, hadn't done a great deal of work, but she just had a sweetness to her, you know? And unfortunately, she's not with us anymore. She died of an aneurysm, I think, a long while ago, which was just a hideous waste, because I think she would have done very well.
Alexandra, you are 18 years old. Do it now.
Okay. Okay.
You're a good girl.
I mean, I think Lilia played a kind of a surrogate mother, if you like, a little bit for her, and also a mentor. You know, she just pushed her to take this audition. Well, I just knew she was a terrific theatre actress, and it was fun working with her, really, just because she had such technique.
Hey, Small, I'll give you a Small. This place is so small you have to go outside to change your mind.
Adrian wanted characters in real life who were humorous and fun. We would interview comedians to be extras, just to spruce up the stuff in the bar. So we'd bring in these comedians, we'd do little bits for Adrian. Some of them become stars. So, I mean, it's really interesting how Adrian works. So he always tries to find somebody who's unique, fresh, and has a little sense of humor about them, or can emote some comedy, or has good comedic timing.
Hi, I'm Richard Blasek. Did you hear the one about the Polak bank robber?
When I was auditioning for the film, I was very nervous because I was going to meet the director. So at the time I was doing a lot of Tai Chi, you know, grab horse's head, and show the monkey and all that stuff. And I would do it to relax before auditions. So I went way off in a corner and I did about 20 minutes of breathing and relaxing, and I calmed myself, I got centered, and I went into the audition. And I was introduced to Adrian, and Adrian said, "Hello, I'm Adrian Lyne." I said, "Hello, I'm Kyle Hefner." And he goes, So what was all this waving of the arms you were doing? I said, "What are you talking about?" Because we were looking out the window and we could see you waving your arms about over in the corner. So he had been seeing me the whole time, and somehow I think that my Tai Chi helped me eventually get the role. And then I had one more audition where standing there right outside the office was an incredibly beautiful young girl, and she had a bag of candy. And I said, "Hi," and she said, "Hi." She said, "I'm Jennifer." And I said, "I'm Kyle, nice to meet you." She said, "Would you like some candy?" And I said, I'd love some. So we stood there and ate candy and talked for a little bit. And that might have been the actual final callback, just to see how well I could eat candy with Jennifer and how well we got along.
And this is my big chance, so if you screw it up for me, I'm going to put cockroaches in your hamburgers. You got it?
At the time, I think he did quite a lot of stand-up, you know, which of course he does in the movie. But I've always liked working with comedians. I worked with Stuart Pankin and on Fatal Attraction. And what's nice is that they're kind of catalysts. They make everybody laugh, and they also ad-lib really well.
Good evening, ladies.
Usually.
Look at that, $21,321, all leather, push button. Want to go for a ride?
Ugh.
I met leaving. I actually saw him singing with his group, with Fear. And it's funny, he came in to see us and he said, "You've got to understand," he said, "I am Johnny C," the guy he was playing, you know? And as far as I know, he'd never acted before. So what I really like is kind of leaps of faith, you know? I like just going instinctively, really. I think it's a good way to go. Obviously, you come from a visual point of view, but in the end, the reason I do these things is for the actors, really. I mean, people say, "Oh, he makes it look nice," you know, and hopefully I do. But what I do like is that with the actors, you know, that's for me what is exciting, because you can have a shitty-looking movie with great actors and great performances, and, you know, the movie works. But a great-looking nothing never works.